Talk for 5 seconds.
I'm talking for 5 seconds.
Okay, yep, you're fine.
Mike has been setting all this up. So thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
I think the whole just saw my ass crack. I was a plumber. I got the plumber's butt. I was like adjusting everything.
You
so.
could really
That'll be the
edit
ad.
that as one piece.
Exactly. Just a slow zoom as you're talking.
I think the thing about art is that
is just like,
it's in the cracks
lint?
between the plaster.
And then he moves out and just goes, "It's all an ad." You don't need the headphones?
I think I'm fine.
Okay,
He
great.
needs his hood. He needs his hood.
He needs his hood, and he has his podcast glasses.
Yeah.
These are the glasses.
Let's talk about the vax.
Okay, but in our last episode, Mike did use some verbiage. He said something, the failing New York Times, and I said, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Where are we getting it from?
It's just fun to say that. Well, they aren't failing. What do you want to say? I mean, listen, facts is facts.
Exactly.
This is what I mean by alt-right.
I don't know what they say. I don't know what
good.
they
I'm
said.
glad I know where I am.
Yeah,
Just to be clear.
Exactly.
Just to be clear.
Fight for your life.
So our RFK for president?
Totally. Oh my God. Vaccines. What are we doing?
Exactly. No, but hello, folks. I'm Josh Morgan. This is Mike Labadia, and this is Nick Blaemire, and we are Creative Risk, where we talk about art, entrepreneur. I have a stroke. Art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between.
Good job.
And I'm. This is our first guest.
Really?
You are our first guest.
Yes, you are.
And
Keep talking.
It's really appropriate because, as I was somewhat saying to Nick, right before we started,
This is my autism.
See, man.
crack and frame. As right before.
Musk does what he does. That's what I do. Nothing productive.
Right before we started, we were saying that. So the episodes obviously typically have some sort of angle where we're exploring some element of art, entrepreneurialism, and surely everything in between. But you sort of encompass this, and before I give context for Nick by reading a bio,
Great, while I sit here.
exactly.
I think you
know.
should.
I know. I said, wait.
Should I read it?
No, but I said
Yeah.
to Mike, are you?
We'll have AI read it.
ChatGPT.
I'm out.
Who is Nick Blaemire?
Blarmir.
Glarbir,
How do you
son of
say it?
Glarbir.
Of the elfin Jews.
Also, we have my computer charger. This is literally every episode. We never get to the point. No,
That's fine. That's fine. We'll never talk about it.
Bio before comfort food performances.
I know, but I
Just
want to
read
give
it now.
I want to give more
It's not gonna
important
read it.
context than the bio. The bio is important.
By the way, I don't think that's plugged in. So I had to do. It is.
It's going around a bookcase
Great.
piece though. That's
we'll
not.
make it as uncomfortable. He has 85% battery.
Well, now it's.
So,
gonna
you
be-
know.
Do you need a charger?
I would need it more than you would.
Okay, every time you come over.
fine.
Okay,
Yeah, you guys can switch it back and forth.
this is already manic.
You're
but
doing
let
great.
me just,
Everyone's doing great.
I have a stroke. I'm passed out.
My God.
That's it.
It's been great. So art. The thing about art.
Art and entrepreneurialism.
I can't even say that word.
Sorry,
Entrepreneurialism.
Mitch McConnell, entrepreneur. So
Read the man's bio.
I
Let's
know,
get it
but
out of the way.
before I
Mitch
read-
McConnell was born in
Before-
1905 in New Rochelle.
That's the
Younger
opening.
brother was born with a chip on his shoulder.
Exactly.
That's good.
I should have been Tate in high school. I was
God,
younger,
you
but
would
it was
have
really
been
bad.
great. You can still do it.
No, but I want to do Tate now.
Yeah, do it now.
I keep auditioning, but no one.
I had an most amazing
You'd be an
idea
amazing
upstairs.
Tate.
What
Thank
was your
you.
idea?
I think that Joshua should play Mrs. Lovett, and that you have a female Sweeney.
And I suggested
Actually, honestly,
Kathleen
though,
Turner.
you could be Sweeney.
Yeah.
You guys could do it.
Instead of Sweeney Todd, it could be like Sweeney
podcast.
Podcast. Sweeney Pod. Welcome to Sweeney Pod.
I'm surprised no one's actually done that. I'm
I'm
sure.
sure
I'm
they
sure there is some MT future lover. But actually,
Future
speaking,
lover.
Future
some preteen. I'm just kidding. That's not.
Oh,
funny.
God.
Cut that out. Cut
Whoa,
that out. Cut that
no,
out. Cut that out. Cut that out.
That's the clip
Hello,
right there.
darkness, my old friend.
That's the clip.
No, but before I read the bio, which is valuable, and we're going to talk about it, and I want to read the bio.
Great.
but I want to. He swears he wants to read it. I just want to give context.
I want to do the podcast totally, but you have to read my bio out loud while I'm next to you. That's how I work.
Mike, what did I say? People don't like
Okay,
this.
well, let's
I
you know what?
said.
Well, pause. Now there's a voiceover happening in the edit. There's a voiceover happening in the edit, and we'll be frozen.
Nick Blaemire is a writer and performer living in Brooklyn with his wife and daughter. At 23 years old, Nick wrote the score to the Broadway one-night sensation rock musical Glory Days, booked by James Gardner, which has since had over 50 productions around the world and will be in concert at Symphony Space on February 12th, 2024. He has written 6 other original musicals: A Little More Alive, commissioned by Broadway across America, premiered at Williamstown Theater Festival, optioned as a feature film. Soon, premiered at Signature Theater, won the Stephen Sondheim Young Artist Citation. Fallout with Kyle Jarrow. Edge of the World with Ethan Slater, commissioned by Artists Rep Theater. Quixote with Daniel J. Watts, commissioned by Joe's Pub. And Space Dogs with Van Hughes, produced off-Broadway at MCC in 2022. He is currently writing some permutation of book, music, and lyrics on 4 adaptation projects for the stage. Nick has released 3 EPs of pop songs, all available on iTunes, Spotify, etc. As an actor, he most recently toured as Mendel in Falsettos and played John in the off-Broadway revival of Tick, Tick, Boom, for which he is nominated for a Drama Desk Award. He will soon be seen playing Adolph Green in Bradley Cooper's Leonard Bernstein biopic, Maestro, for Netflix. His IG is at Blaemire.
Okay, so you don't have to read the bio now.
Because I did say,
do it
like,
in
I was
post.
like, I wouldn't want someone to read. I would do it after. Would you prefer that?
I couldn't care less.
We just did
Okay.
it. Well, we just made it happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
but
happening in
I want to
post.
give my personal context for a minute because it relates
God.
to
too many people giving that these days. Who cares?
If I might just throw out my opinion real quick. No, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
Because I'll figure it out on the fly.
That's one fucking funny thing that Jess Fontana always says that kills me. Like we're talking, she's like, okay, but the thing about me is, and I always, it's
really
so good. Like,
It's really good.
no, but I had a full circle moment a few weeks ago, and it relates to you being on the podcast today. So when I was in high school, was when I first sort of became aware of you. I know.
What year did you graduate?
You're like, how much younger are you than me?
Yeah.
I know. I think we're around the same age, but
Yeah.
you're just prolific, which we'll talk about in a second. Because remember, I saw Ass Backwards, or
right.
was called Ass Backwards, right? At the time,
2003, right?
at Joe's Pub, with Jeffrey Self, who was at the School of the Arts at the time.
Right.
So yeah, I wasn't in high school, so I was in college.
Right. Okay, so we are the same age.
Yes.
2002, you graduated high school.
Oh no, I graduated in 2005.
Oh, so you were in high
I
school.
was in high school.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought I was around 18 years old because it was 2003. I was born in 87.
Because he was dating a 14-year-old around that
Shut
time.
the fuck up. This is
But
this
the
is a new
alt-right,
dad.
the alt-right, though, actually, I just want to say, I miss
No.
Richard Spencer. What can I say?
But I knew who you were because I was, the height of my theater obsession and fandom when I was sort of coming into, all things love of teatro. And I sort of became aware of you because already you were making, it was, you were doing and creating and putting things out there. And I just did this show, and this guy's 22 years old. And I talk about you a lot. Truly, in fact, not to be tangential, but your name comes up a lot in videos. We talked about you, I think, in the last podcast, because you have informed a lot of our work, believe it or not, just because of who you are, not just as an artist, but as a person. And this guy, Joseph, the straight dude who I randomly clicked with during the show, I was talking about you. He goes like, "Oh, I know who Nick Blaemire is. I knew who Nick Blaemire was when I was 17 years old. I started tracking his career." And the reason why it relates to this moment, Nick, is because that was, 18 something years ago for me. And here's this kid who just graduated college, who looks up to and admires, you almost as much as I did.
You got longevity.
You got
very kind.
longevity, and but
Start early, people. Start early. That's the
durable.
trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So now, so I'm just giving context because I'm so honored to call you a friend. I'm so honored to have you
Back at
here.
Thank you for that.
And we'll talk about a blip of this. We'll maybe talk about soon one of the shows that you've
Oh my God,
written.
that we met on.
Well, again, and as you now to give you even more context, I think I said this to you at the time. What it meant to me.
Oh my God,
You
what
know-
it meant to me. You were brilliant in that show, which very, very, overused word, but used correctly in this context.
Well, I knew this was going to be a love fest all around.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, right? Actually, I think about this, and a friend of mine who I love very much, Daniel Jenkins, came over last night.
Oh, he's amazing.
He's amazing
Amazing
actor,
dude.
and
Big River?
Big River,
That's
Tony
right.
nominee in
He's
like
a great actor,
87.
too. Great
Great
actor.
actor. He was, he's done a bunch
Nice
of
dude.
stuff. I think he was in Oslo.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
But he's just like an uncle at this point, and he was talking about how the Love Fest thing is actually a real challenge with collaborators because it's like you have to have direction within it. You can't just like be in it for the validation, and that's a real challenge. So like, Love Fest with purpose today, Joshua. We can't just sit here and
Call
love
me
each other.
Jonathan.
Yeah. Is that
Love
Jonathan,
love
right?
Fest. Love Fest. I love you too, Frankie.
George and Jonathan, here we are.
Yeah.
So-
me
so-
and Jonathan go way back. Yeah.
So at this point, you've heard Nick's bio.
yeah.
Three times
Before-
slowly.
Exactly.
And so
I've just been
before we
editing it.
jump into a lot of that, we want to do our comfort food performances, which
Okay.
we do now. I don't know. We do this music, even though we put music on top of it. Actually, do you know that Nick? Do you remember? So this is where it's going to go. But do you remember you wrote the theme song for the No Rules show?
Yeah, how did that go?
Oh, memory.
He just
Memory.
stands. He
Poppers
just
have
stands up
destroyed
and
my brain
sings it.
cells. That was a
You got
lot
poppers into the show.
that
But soon we did.
Poppers?
No, but so we do comfort food performances, and apparently I thought we were doing another holiday one. Apparently I was.
You
off.
can do a holiday one. You can pick up. It's comfort. It's open season. I'll go first.
Okay,
just to give you
okay.
context.
Great.
But then you could do a holiday one.
Okay,
Peter Falk and Columbo.
God,
I
great.
haven't
stuff.
seen it.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, did the nicest guy the whole episode. Oh yeah, and just one more thing.
Yeah. Oh, he's so good. He
Oh.
does. He plays. So basically, he plays like an idiot. He plays like this like Brooklyn cop in L.A. and all of the murderers are all like really fancy, rich, like smart people,
Mhm.
and they stage these like perfect murders.
Yeah.
And then, he comes in and he's like the lead homicide detective. He's like, hey, and he's like picking up their stuff. He's like, oh, and he acts like a big idiot. And they think
Write him off. They write him
they
off.
write him off.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then he turns out he's like a genius.
Yes.
And Peter Falk is fucking
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
Mikey and Nikki.
Oh my God. He's
Come on.
excellent.
Elaine
Husbands,
May's
have you seen
movie?
Husbands?
I haven't seen Husbands.
Ooh, he's fucking well.
I haven't
yeah,
seen
'cause-
Opening Night.
This is
either,
Elaine
which I
May's
haven't.
movie?
They're
Yeah.
doing Opening Night as a musical.
Rufus Wainwright in West End.
That's
Can't
fucking
wait.
Yes,
Evo
that's
Von
right.
Hope.
I will fly. I mean, I won't.
What's
but I
her
wish I
face?
would.
Who
I
else?
feel
Wait,
so
there's a
bad
third.
about that.
Who's the third as part of that? Rufus Wainwright,
Evo Von Hope.
and there's a
Scarlett Strat. Who's playing the?
Oh yeah, it's somebody's playing the role. That's
Yeah.
how they. But that movie, Opening Night. What's her fucking name? John Cassavetes'
Gina
wife.
Rollins.
Yeah. Oh man, she's like.
She's great.
She
Women
is
under influence.
Oh,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
But yeah, Peter Falk and everything. But Peter Falk and Columbo, like I can watch him all day, and he's just
That's a great one.
so. He's just always like he'll be like, I have a question regarding, and he's like takes like 5 minutes to take out his notebook, and he's like fumbling over it, like that's the episode, and like the person standing there.
No,
being
I was so with you. Okay, I got
Yeah.
one from
Okay,
from
good.
that.
Good.
And this is like kind of a bad good performance, but
Good.
it's
I like those.
comforting. Kevin Costner in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh, sure. I just watched this.
And it made you feel good,
And
didn't it?
who's the love interest again? What's her name?
Oh my God, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Yes!
Oh,
Who I saw Man of La
she's-
Mancha.
Oh, totally.
revival, yeah.
Dulcinea.
She's so nice.
And Alan Rickman like just chewing
Yes.
scenery
Yeah.
and ad-libbing. I'll cut your heart out with this spoon. But Kevin Costner is doing an American accent.
Right, exactly.
And that is what is amazing is that he has like wrenched the entire thing to his skill set, which is limited, but his charm is real. And he really is feeling it, and he's like into it, and he is heroic in it, and there's some crazy, amazing moments.
Yes.
The score is amazing.
Yes, it's really good.
It's really good. really good.
I haven't seen the movie, so I forgot a Mary Elizabeth Master. What's her face?
Master Antonio.
Master Antonio. She's. I saw her in like a farce on Broadway. She was in like a play.
What
She
farce?
was like best friends with Kevin Stites. Do you know who Kevin Stites is?
Music director. Yeah, I did Baby with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Really?
I
Where?
love him. We did it at NYU with Richard Maltby.
Baby. I know.
Somebody's breaking in.
No, and listen, it's not only is there beeping, it will continue unless I turn it off.
You should turn it off.
All right, here we go. This
Pause.
is like, have you ever seen the most graceful thing you're ever about to see in your life? Let's see it.
Meanwhile, like you just flash them your pink hole for the like, 10
Pink,
minutes.
yeah. Trust me, it's not pink.
You don't bleach it?
Trust me, dude, not pink.
You
Not
don't
pink at
bleach?
all. Yeah, we'll
Oh,
probably
yeah.
still keep going. I mean, he doesn't like silences in the. I'm still gonna fill the
The
silence.
podcast. The silence in the podcast.
Yeah,
We don't need
exactly.
any
No, we can have
silence in
silence in the
po-
podcast.
A
Whatever.
little louder? Can you make it a little?
Yeah. Turn it
It's
up.
a little too.
I like.
subtle.
I feel like I'm in a panic room. No, but I saw her in something on Broadway. It was like a play, and it was it'd be like, oh, Sir Wellington's here, and it was like shit like that. Yes, please.
The Winslow Boy.
I think it was that.
Was that it?
It was something like it took place in some
Stuffy.
olden time shit.
Yeah.
And she was like,
But you loved it.
yeah.
No,
I did
she's-
enjoy it.
She's amazing.
I was in her limo afterwards. She had a limo come
What?
pick her up, and we got in her limo.
You were in the limo?
her?
with her and
Why?
Kevin.
What are you talking
We were
about?
doing
Kevin
blow.
Stites.
Yeah.
Stites.
Yeah, no, we got
Were
like
you
it was-
really?
yeah, we went into a limo afterwards.
You probably were doing cocaine. With
I,
Kevin
bro, I
Stites.
wish.
No, that's the 80s. We missed all that.
I mean,
Not from what I hear.
just pull out a big bag right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. Yeah, he just really like taught me the idea of camp. Like I
Yeah.
think in that moment.
Which is kind of ironic that Kevin Costner would teach you the
Well,
idea.
yeah,
of
he
camp.
didn't mean to. But like that's the thing with like Diana. Like watching Diana, that musical, realized that there was like nothing wrong with laughing with it. And
Yes.
like there are so many moments that are so like the guy coming out of the floor shirtless
Yes.
singing a high C, like that's funny.
It is
you know,
funny.
and so like they like Anna, my wife, talked about that, like that going to see it was like going to see Rocky Horror, and it was like everyone's in on the joke, but
Well, yeah.
but it's that question.
I mean, who's gonna go see the Diana musical? It's like people probably
Did you
love
see
camp.
Should we cut this?
This is half of what we talk about. Should we cut this? Did you
Yeah.
see it?
I saw the Netflix movie.
What was it about?
Well, it was just like
Whisper so they can't hear it. Was it about?
it's like taint natural,
Yeah.
Like not only is the show tonally like needed the audience to explain its comedic,
Yeah.
strain, but also like they had no audience, so they were doing it in the pandemic in like an empty theater, and it was like that depressing,
Sad,
Zoom
isn't it?
musical kind of thing.
Yeah, heard. I will watch it. Judy Kay, I just obsessed with.
Amazing.
I saw Souvenir many a time.
Yeah,
she's
that's a
amazing.
good one.
I would love to play that part.
Yeah,
too.
I was about to say. Yeah,
I would
you'd be
love
great.
to do that.
Okay, what's yours?
Yeah.
Okay,
comfort food
well, I
performance.
already told you, and I was racking my brain if I want to do something new, but I don't. I want to stick to it, and I'm gonna stick to it. And it's Tim Allen, in the Santa Claus, and
Ugh,
but
yeah.
really,
Amazing performance.
well, I just want to say, I think Tim Allen is very underrated.
Very underrated.
and his politics are underrated too.
What are his politics?
Yeah.
Are they?
Republican,
Are
very
they?
Republican.
I did not know that.
Oh no, he's like super.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's not around anymore? They fucking got rid of him.
He also was
Really?
he was selling coke before he did
Right.
before he did Home Improvement. He really
careful.
he
I
really
don't know,
improved his
yeah.
whole life. He became America's dad, and he was was at rock bottom right before it. So I have a lot of love for Tim Allen too.
Wow.
And he and Tom Hanks are really close, and like that.
He
makes
has
me love
like
him.
you can see his mugshot on like
Yeah.
he has like a mugshot.
Really?
Mustache. And he has got a
Mustache.
Yeah, he looks like a fucking. He looks
Well,
like a somebody transporting cocaine across. The
I
border.
will just say, not
playing
only
the part.
Yeah, exactly.
not only is his performance in that movie great, but his other Republican friend, Kirstie Alley, and For Richer or For Poorer, the reason I'm bringing that up is because he sort of always plays the same part.
Yeah.
He's not really like
Buzz Lightyear.
a transfer, but low key.
Kind of.
It's not. It's just sort of like it, but he does it
Galaxy
so
Quest?
well. Yeah. I mean, but also back to the OG. I'm sorry, Home Improvement was a really good show. My first crush, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Oh
Any
my
takers?
Patricia Richardson for me.
Yes.
I've never watched that show.
She's great, and she's great on West Wing, and like the seasons like 6 and 7. She's Alan Alda's campaign manager.
Yes,
she's
yes.
amazing.
Oh my!
Wait, and who
gosh.
is the other guy from Home Improvement now who basically does the same show but in real
Al.
life? Yeah, he was never really an actor. I think.
Yeah, but
maybe.
he was just charming as hell. He was so great on that show.
He's like, here's a
Oh, his
hammer.
friend.
He still has the same show now.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so Tim Allen,
Tim
the Santa
Allen.
Claus, big ups to him because I think
ups.
he's
He's great.
underrated. Did not know that he was a raging Republican. No problem. We're basically an alt-right podcast, so all are welcome here.
Yeah. No vax.
So
just
I want to dive right in. It's been 30 minutes.
Dive right in.
I'm so sorry.
No, I want to go back to because somewhat the beginning. And maybe this will take us even before that for a second. But I do want to talk about Glory Days because I was thinking about it this morning. Glory Days is a show that was on Broadway that you wrote when you were and it was debuted when you were 23, premiered on Broadway, but you had started writing it
I was 18.
many years before. And quick premise of Glory Days.
4 friends come back together after a year away at college and try to pick up where they left off and can't.
And
Unreal.
I had seen an iteration of it at Joe's Pub when it was called Ass Backwards in its early iteration. The reason why I want to start here because you were 23 years old and you had a show that was on Broadway that you wrote. I mean, can you just talk through that experience for yourself and how it shaped you, if at all? Because not many people can say they did that.
That's really sweet of you, and yeah, you're right. I mean, I feel like I got like the rarest grad school ever, and in some ways, it's that thing. People who make art, who are imaginers or dreamers, and have this idea of what their career should look like and be, and I certainly had this dream of like writing a Broadway show and like being young and doing it, and writing about young people and trying to reflect this generation to this generation and all that stuff, because I love Jonathan Larson and like I love Jason Robert Brown, and he was 25 when he did Songs for a New World, and Stephen Schwartz was 23 when he did Pippin, so there was this like goal age. And then it happened, and real life just like collided with this imagined life that in a way that was both really strange and bad, and also like totally wonderful and eye-opening to like the true magic of life and of like why we make stuff, because that the value of doing that show and seeing it resonate with people and learning how to write on it, because I like wasn't I hadn't written anything at all, like stuff in school. I wrote a one-man show in high school. But yeah, there were a lot of lessons, hard and welcome, that I, in some way, I think now, like, I just feel so lucky that I got so many of the like dreams that I had at the beginning of my life, not out of the way, but like I didn't pine until the age that I am now for a dream that I had when I was 13, only to learn when I was 40, like,
Right.
oh, this wasn't worth like, centering my whole life around.
That's interesting. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of what I mean, one thing I'm inferring about what you're saying that is interesting is like kind of like there's a level of disillusionment
Yes.
that happens, but
Yes.
there's magic.
But there's still
But
magic.
but the realness is actually sometimes more magical than the fantasy. Like seeing being at that age and dealing with producers, dealing with investors.
Yeah.
I mean,
We had a
and-
guy. We had a
please.
guy say to us, "We will give you full $100,000 for the show if you change the ages of the characters to 25. And he said that while we were in previews on Broadway. And like we need $400,000 to like keep going, you know. But like James Gardner, like my brother for life, who we both know and love from DC, he wrote the book, and he and I went out to the lobby, and we're just like, we can't fucking do that, right? Like that's not the show we wrote, you know. And like that, the art commerce line being like shown to us.
See, that's fucking cool though, because it's like, and there is, it's like, you know, it's getting that young and realizing like. Kind of what do you call it when you adapt to you meet it at the level what's that called?
Rise to it, like
oh god, it's something. It's a psychological thing. I wish I was smart. But it's like
you are smart. You clearly know there's a word.
It's a word. It's called the something treadmill. It's like where you meet the level of where you're at. You know, you adapt very quickly to it or whatever. Anyway, but it's like the fact that you know, you were disillusioned in some respects at that age, and you saw how the sausage is made.
Yep.
And, you know, you like you said, you got that out of the way, and you like realized like, oh, and then you could actually see the nuanced beauty of it all. It's
the beauty of making stuff for the sake of making it, and what that conversation with yourself and other people does, and the worth of that, and how that can contribute to a career. But I was career first, art second. And I am now art first, career second. And it makes my work better. And it doesn't mean I don't have career instincts, but like I just like wanted to succeed so bad. And I really get that. I get why we all want that. There, especially if you're in theater and musical theater, especially, there's some piece of you that's like, I'm going to show the bullies wrong, you know, that they're wrong, or whoever that thing you're pushing against is. And I think that's good. I mean, ambition is good and drive is good, but it's all about where and how and what the result, what result you need to happen in order to feel happy. And I really needed this to happen. And it closed on opening night. Like, let's just put that part out there, is that like it failed in spectacular fashion.
Jokingly called Glory Day.
Jokingly called Glory Day, which is like the ultimate cosmic joke. Yeah. And I feel so, lucky that I didn't become famous at 23 and become an asshole and like, end up in a coke binge at 28. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, well, I don't have to.
Honestly, what a bad person that guy is.
So bad.
I love him. Honestly, he's a fucking genius. He's a genius.
Yeah, no, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's true. I wish I could say it's not true.
Well, that's why it's funny.
Yeah. But it's interesting when you say like art first, and I do want to put a pin in that, because it's like, what is it? I'm curious, just like to break down like more like, what does it mean to put art first? Mm-hmm. Because people think like, what we do, it's like we're all about like business, and it's like, it's. Look, it's.
I would say it's about art first.
I think it is about art. It's about being creative,
being able to make art for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
how
so,
do you do that methodically and like put that into practice and deal with the way that the sausage is made and interact with those challenges? Yeah. But doing that from a place where the thing that is driving you is important to you and isn't like. Like don't do that. Don't go to an office mentality to make art, because like.
Well, that's it too. It's like when it's like the intention behind it all too. Yeah. And it's so we were just talking about, I don't know if that made it because of the thing, but like the Love Fest, it's the intention behind, like if we're out here for validation and for ambition and for, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, it's about being an advocate for yourself and your art, I think.
Yeah. What are you selling?
Exactly.
But I would just, going back to this idea of that experience you had with Glory Days at such a young age, commerce and art, this duality, I would just argue that you then innately understood something that allows you to put art first now in a way that feels like that's what you're primarily being driven by. And the reason why I'm trying to give context for why that's unique is most artists don't ever aren't able to hold those dualities all at once. For example, we'll talk about some of the projects you're working on or that you haven't working on, but even the simple idea of how we package things, right? I know some of the film projects you're working on, some of which are based off of some of your stage musical projects. And we've talked about, I won't say who unless you choose to, but I know you've been talking about certain names to help move projects along. Why do I bring it up? Because sometimes I think artists forget, though, that you can have both. You can understand that I have to package this to get it sold, to get some money behind it, while also leading with art. Does that feel true for you?
Yes. I mean, I try to, yes, I think it's like 51-49, in favor of art, in that like, it's not 100-0. And I actually think it's quite entitled and sort of lazy to be like, I'm all art, come find me. Like that's, some people do that and maybe that's fine for, the kind of lifestyle that they want to live. But I think living in New York City and being like, there's just certain agreements that you're making. If you said, okay, I want to be an off-Broadway artist, which is something that I really did say to myself when I got to New York, and Broadway wasn't necessarily, even for Glory Days, which is like kind of a off-Broadway show, like we got offered a Broadway slot and suddenly that became the goal. Yeah. But in, a lot of ways, I think I was always looking sort of at the left of center indie space. And over the course of my, first 10, 15 years in New York, I was like, oh shit, there's no money here. Like there's no money here. So what do I do about that? And I think, there's no shade to somebody who says some of my favorite actors are like, I love off Broadway. That's where the real art in New York is. And I will make my money some other way. And in some ways, I am saying that too. I'm just making art that lives in the commercial space also, and trying to like answer this business question, in a way that I can live with, not just live with, but be excited about.
Right. Do you think that thinking about the commercial elements of art, or thinking about it for an audience, or how it exists in the market, do you think that elevates your work, or do you think it hinders your work, or
hinders my work?
Yeah. How so?
I think that the work has to be just because you think it's cool, and it really has to pass that test, which is a simple test, but it's a super hard one, because if you get handed something that has commercial expectations, or you can see how it fits into the zeitgeist in some way, you start contorting it to fit, even like subliminally, and then the zeitgeist changes almost ironically in that cosmic joke way right as you put the thing out. There's a weird relationship there that's like, you can't genetically engineer something for the world. You have to like be unique and then realize that everyone is unique, and therefore your thing resonates with more people than you thought.
I love that. I think that's valuable. Yeah.
But I want to take another micro example, or specific example that I think might speak to this. So a couple of years ago, and I know you're still working on it now. Nick and another great artist, Van Hughes, created Space Dogs, which the premise of which,
oh my God, I mean, it's about the real dogs that went into space in the 50s and 60s, and the love affair between a man known as the chief designer and a dog named Laika.
Like
it's got
the
that
beauty pageant. I still love the beauty pageant.
There's that one. There's that one. Oh my, dag nabbit. That's I love that's like my favorite. That's one of my favorite riffs ever. He's like, dag nabbit. That's like, I love that.
You can stream it on Broadway HD.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
it's
and
really
it films
great.
Well.
Thanks,
it films
man.
well.
It was so fun.
It films very well.
So fun.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I want to talk about Space Dogs is a couple things, and I want to dovetail off of the commercial idea for a second, and see if I can get this question out effectively.
Good luck.
So one of the things that you have seemingly done, I don't want to, because you and I've never spoke about this directly.
We've never spoken.
But
today is the first day.
Jonathan,
Jonathan.
Yes. Is you have developed some relationships with your own financial supporters, and some of which are obviously commercial producers. So while I want to talk about several facets of Space Dogs, just including kind of like, to your point, how you made it, because you and Van sort of, I know it was like at your cabin, I think.
Cabin and also like 5 blocks from here, in Bushwick on Dodworth, where Van had a like an amazing basement that we would walk around stoned and have like make each other laugh. And then I was just like writing it down in a Google Doc, and he was like, okay, so move that here. And then, you know, it had a great playful vibe.
Well, and so,
awesome.
and I want to talk about getting that to MCC. But do you, will you speak to your history and experience in developing relationships with people who have gone on to support your work? And do you find that some of those relationships with people that you assumedly trust allows you to focus more on the work so that then sometimes they can focus on some of more of the commercial aspects?
I have found a lot of really meaningful relationships of great people who want art to be made, who don't make art specifically, but can facilitate art in an integritous way. And I love those people. I think it's really hard to delegate and displace the workload, especially if you're like Sisyphus. You know, it's to really kind of offload brain space is challenging. And I found a few people actually in the most recent, like in the last year of my life, who are starting to make me feel like I'm not doing all of it all the time. But I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I'm also used to asking, which is really the answer to your question, which is that like time and trying and failing to like get through the door in a multitude of ways has like just after a while like worn some people down, or I've been around long enough. Kyle Jarrow is a great buddy of mine. He's a wonderful writer, wrote SpongeBob, writes for TV, is on Star Trek.
Cuban Missile Crisis
musical that we wrote. That was really, really fun and not commercial with like 12 people in it, but we did a cool concerts on YouTube. Great cast, Nick Christopher.
We'll link it in the show
Patrick
notes.
Page, I think.
Patrick Page
I
was
was
in it.
there. I remember.
Yeah,
I
you
saw
came.
it, yeah.
You came. What'd you say?
I said we'll link it in the show notes.
That'd be awesome. But he talks about, you know, turning like 35, 36 and people being like, oh, Kyle, yeah, I remember seeing you at that event like 10 years ago. You're still doing it? That's cool. And like, oh, you know who knows you is, and this web starts building. And I really feel part of that, and I bet you guys do too, that just staying does something. It proves that you're trustworthy because you keep showing up. And I think what's really hard at the beginning when we're the most hopeful and like wanting to break in at 23, people are like, you actually are a child. Like, why should I trust you? And you know, going back to Glory Days, I raised a lot of money for that show on my youth, you know, and being like, you know, how many people can you say are calling you with a Broadway show that's opening in a month that needs $1 million right now? And that helped, but also hurt because I felt terrible when the show closed and people's money was lost. Like that's a responsibility that I still wakes me up in the middle of the night. And that is a hard piece of asking for money and asking for support. My second show, A Little More Alive, which is the one that Joshua was talking about, getting turned into a movie, that when we got $500,000 for that show after a reading we did in Laguna, California, I like got heart palpitations and I was like 28. Wow. I could just feel the weight of the responsibility of like how good the show had to be, like $500,000 good, you know?
Wow.
And that, going back to your question about like responding to the zeitgeist and expectations, like I think I capitulated in a lot of ways to that pressure with A Little More Alive. And it's been an interesting reclamation project with you know, doing the movie script and being like, no, like this is the story, whether or not I want to go to Broadway with it, you know. And that's, I think, a big piece of all this is like there's kind of imperfect venues for the work that we all do, and if you want to make money, going to Broadway makes sense, but like not every story fits there, and not every story should fit there, and sometimes you can make space for the story. But, you know, just like, again, art first. In that moment, I think I was like really feeling just the pressure of that 49%, you know, that you're wearing of other people's money and other people's, I could have invested in that instead of this, but I trusted you, and trying not to crumble from that.
Right.
You know what's really, Mike and I talk a lot about the 49-51% is a really interesting idea because
I think it's great.
I would argue that seemingly what you're able to do that I think a lot of us struggle with when holding these very close percentages is knowing that we're still leading with the art.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can feel sometimes in this rat race, you know, that you're being pulled by the other. You know, Michael, my boyfriend Michael, who went to high school with Mike. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've known him for
Yeah.
I guess what now, like 15, 16,
Were you
17
involved
years.
in the setup?
No, I wasn't. No.
You just bought.
But
what?
we all
know,
went to the
isn't
school
that
of the
weird?
arts.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
but and Mike's a little older than Michael, and I'm older than everybody. So
And I'm older than you.
there you go. So no, but
You need me around more so you can feel young.
young, exactly.
Yeah.
I can feel
Hip.
young again. I'm feeling very
Yeah.
fresh and spry.
Fresh.
No, but wait, what was I saying, Michael? Oh, when we were out to dinner with you and Honest a couple years ago, and it relates to what I'm saying. We were talking about how it always feels like other people are doing it more than you, even though
Totally.
you know you're doing it. You know, it always feels like in this moment in this capitalistic hellscape, and just the arts being the arts as is, that you're always kind of behind.
Yep.
And I'm saying this idea of 49-51 because it is art first. You know, let's shift some of our branding here because I just really like this idea. But I think for some artists, when you start to think about the 49%, even when you think about 10% of the 49%, you can start to feel like you're losing
Period.
your why.
Yes.
And I'm acknowledging that because you keep saying it, and I would argue that that's what we all need to do, is to hold on to that concept of why we play the other games that we do in the midst to let that 51%.
Well, and one thing too is, and one thing I'm taking away too from this is that, that's what the investors want to see too. Right. They don't want you.
Yeah, exactly.
They want the art
That's
first,
right.
don't they? It's like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, yes, it'd be nice for you to talk about ROIs and whatever, and
right.
But I guess if you were asked, but that's not what they want to talk to you about.
And they want to be the special ones for understanding that, and they are, because
Yes.
I would be a producer if that's what my real why was. And I think it's so true. It's that thing of trusting that being unique is actually like your job.
That's it. And what's interesting too about it, and these, I'm assuming you have relationships with some of those investors from Glory Days still today.
Totally. Totally.
It's not when people think about business or fundraising or blah, 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 it's like it becomes very sterile.
Mm-hmm.
But you have personal, genuine
relationships.
And
Yeah.
good business is personal and it's genuine. That's how good. Otherwise, it's just plug and play with everything else.
Common goals.
Exactly.
And being like, we're not going to get to that place without each other. So now we're valuable to each other. And I like your family, and we can banter and we can enjoy the process, which to me, like the more I do it, is really like group puzzle think. We all get together and just like try to crack the puzzle and hang out while doing it. And the more that it feels like hanging out, the better you are at doing it. So all of those delicate balances of like getting out of its way and not coming into a sterile work 9-to-5 environment or 9-to-5 attitude about your work. I do work from 9 to 5 every day on my play.
Yes.
And I'm trying to stay loose on that.
And it's creative work. And, the last thing, because we do work with, we work with artists of various, points in their career. We work with developmental people. It's like people really think that like business coaching for acting is like sending pitch emails all day, like mass pitch. It's like, and what's fascinating is it takes away the person connection, whatever the fuck. It takes away, good. What you said is, it's all a collaboration all the time.
Yeah, we're animals. We're
Exactly.
animals relating non-verbally, and there's all kinds of energy being passed.
Exactly.
And the I cringe when you say the pitch email thing, because it is a piece of it and it sucks to do. And I sympathize. We're all sending those emails being like, please write back. But that should be like an hour of your day, maybe even an hour of your week.
Right.
And then the rest of it is generative and collaborative, and meet
yes.
people and additive. Just see things and love it.
I love that. That's pretty fantastic.
Art first.
I think you should ask the Space Dogs question though, because I think about how if we can get into details about.
Yes.
I am curious about how that was mounted. Like, what was the sort of the step-by-step process of getting it off Broadway?
Yeah, totally. So, starting off, none of it was the goal. It's sort of an odd thing.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of that John Lennon quote about God making other plans, because I think what made that show unique and was surprising to me, taught me so much about how to make a show, was that like Van was like, hey, have you heard about the Space Dogs?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And he sent me a YouTube link, and I my jaw fell to the floor, and I saw the whole show and how it could have this tone of like him telling it to me and me telling it to him, and how fun that would be to not be constricted by narrative,
Yeah.
Sort of like we were talking about with Bedlam Theater Company and the way they're doing Arcadia right now, which runs till January what?
January 1st, right? We were about to extend it.
Nice.
Yeah, January 1st. Yeah.
That that there's so much to be had in acknowledging the artifice of doing the play in the first place.
Yes.
That I really had never experimented with, and this suddenly felt like we were breaking the fourth wall immediately. And so we were really playful in making it, and that was so fun. And then I had been up to this place called the Barn Arts Project in Maine.
Yes.
Almost Maine. And shout out.
Almost Maine.
almost Maine. Love you, John Cariani. So we went up there for a summer thanks to John Sood, who's a great songwriter, and he's like a music editor now for a lot of great films, and a bunch of other people up there, Andrew Simon and Lindsay Hope Perlman, who directed it. We did this like workshop production in a barn up there, and it was magical. And there was a moment in it at the end when Laika, spoiler alert, dies and goes to space, that the barn doors opened and we had a car outside in the driveway that turned on its headlights and like hit a rock chord and Laika, flew away into space.
Wow.
And it was like, oh shit, like this is free of all of the constraints. And then frankly, in a lot of ways, the rest of the process was about constraining it. And it was a really big challenge because, from the outside and even to me, the idea of going to going to off-Broadway was like the best that it could be.
Yeah.
But along the way, I really did see like the $3 version and the value of the $3 version and the challenge of adding money. And in some ways, I think we spent too much money on the MCC production, which I really still loved doing. And we had a fucking, amazing experience amidst Omicron,
Right.
delaying us and like just making it hard to do the show with people in masks. And then the Ukraine-Russian war in the middle of a show about Ukraine-Russian war. So all of that was insane. But it also just taught me about, the challenges of keeping the DNA of something through each step of the process.
Yeah.
And like, I love Bernie Telsey, and I've been terrified of him, since I got to New York City, and he kind of has that Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka like place in our lexicon, our circles. And I just felt like he didn't, he had cast me and stuff actually, but even when like we did a little more alive, Rachel Hoffman cast that through Telsey, he was like this elusive creature, and I really owe my wife for Space Dogs going to MCC because her show, Which Way to the Stage, which was amazing, there had gotten a slot first, and she knew they were looking for a small musical, and I saw them leaving a show that Anna was in, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, at
The New Group.
New Group. I saw Will Cantler and Bernie Telsey and Bob Lupone, rest in peace, love him so much, in the lobby at Signature, and I was like, hey, I got a 2-person show for you, and they're like, oh, sick. And it was like a different, honestly, this is a reason to write actors to create other things aside from your sort of the like please cast me place, which we all hate that feeling. My dynamic with Bernie in the moment of that 2-sentence pitch was totally equal.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, we're bros. And he's like, we're bros. You were a show. That's good for me. Is it funny? Is it cool? Is it weird? Is it? And I'm like, it's all those things. And I didn't even mean to do that, you know?
Well, that's what's fascinating about that is, first off, I love that idea of like, we always appeal to them, like in this, and like, that's not, you know, if you
It makes
spend your
them
whole life
uncomfortable.
here, and if you spend your whole life here, then that's where you're always going to be.
Yes.
And it's like, and it makes them uncomfortable. And, but what's fascinating is the fact that, we just think that like shows happen magic, like that there's some, it's like, no, it's like, it's connections, it's pitching.
Totally.
And it's like that, you literally pitched your show to them.
I'm a
And-
Nepo baby. In that moment, I'm a Nepo baby. My wife was like, hey, yo, you know, it's insider trading. But it's also just like being, and like, for instance, like I hang out with other artists to hear what they're up to so that I can learn how I'm behind.
Sure.
You know, like
love that.
being behind is, as you say, like we all feel it. Therefore, is it that bad? Like, and is it even real? You know,
Yes.
and of course it's true on some level because somebody thought of Hamilton, you know, Lynn thought of Hamilton before all of us. Maybe.
Right.
But somebody else might have been working on it, you know, up to the moment that he got it, and
100%.
it was like, oh shit, okay, now I got to pivot. But that was maybe good for their life to, you know, broaden and think about this in
Yes.
another direction. Like it's all ricocheting. you
As
know?
my best
Exactly.
friend says, if you aren't behind, where are you? Which I always
Oh
think
my
like
God.
that. Means so many things. No,
Yeah,
but
that's
I,
very
he-
like-
you know what we haven't talked about yet. That we need to as part of this.
We do need to talk about that.
So Omicron, no. So Nick, the
vax.
the Russian-Ukraine war. So
Yeah,
Nick,
please.
the vax.
yeah.
The fucking jab.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so Nick, obviously you starred in Space Dogs, but here's the deal. You know, everything we've been talking about up to this point has been work that you've self-made and written, but you're not only such a great actor, truly. Fun fact: Nick was born with an oversized heart. If you don't mind me sharing, and I say that a lot because not only
He's
is
just
it
like, don't you ever fucking tell anybody that. He's like, punches me. He's like, don't you fucking.
This is fucked, man.
no, but
We're talking about my insides.
it's an actual.
That's off
I'm sure
limits.
it's an actual medical issue, but I like from the figurative standpoint of what it means, is because I remember when I forget who told me that. It might have been your mom who actually said that to me.
Likely. She's like in the lobby being like,
she's
you
like-
want to know some stories about Nikki?
Oversized height.
Yeah.
No, but as an actor, you just like your writing, but even differently so. And I'm thinking about when like specifically in Space Dogs is sort of going, you know, ascending.
Yeah,
And you have that song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Fuzziest, Loneliest,
Yes.
which Dan wrote. It's the most amazing gift of a song.
You are such a grounded, full-hearted performer, and you've performed in film, television, Broadway. In fact, I saw that you're going to be, because we read your bio earlier. It's in the
yeah.
top. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, but, no, but so you're appearing as Adolph Green in Maestro.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So, but here's why I want to talk about this, because I'm curious about what the crossover represents for you, if anything, between actor and writer, slash, you know, this is, I would argue that you are in many ways sort of living the dream of so many artists of self-creating, waiting for no one, able to continue to sort of to play in both worlds, you know, as an actor from time to time, as an actor in your own work, writing work for other people. What do these pieces represent for you? And do you have a preference, and what pulls you in one direction or the other?
That's so kind of you, and I'm living my dream, so I'm feeling very, very constantly like just pinch myself. It's really like nerds day out, you know. Every morning I get up, I'm like, okay, I got to write this musical, and I got to go learn this musical side, or like, you know, it's just come here and talk about this with you guys. Like, this is so special, and it does feel like, you know, it's tricky because I know that the big outlier in all of this, and the thing that allows me to have this bifurcated life is Glory Days. And like the fact that like people are like, oh, that guy, even though for a long time it was like, oh, that guy, but like Tom Schumacher. I wrote the Descendants adaptation for Disney, and at the reading, Tom Schumacher came in and he was like, Jane Abramson, who was the head over there at the time, was like, this is Nick Blaemire, Tom, and he was like, he wrote Glory Days. And he was like, oh. I was like, it's okay, Tom. Actually, you hired me for this.
Yeah.
But it just like put my name in people's ear, and that allowed for all kinds of things. Because I think, it is hard to live two lives at the same time, and it is a weird, when you're doing this, you're not doing that, and so feels like there's a reason to choose. But I feel like, you only have two eyes, you only have 24 hours. Like, I'm just going to do what's in front of me that like resonates the most. And that's gotten clearer over the years, as opposed to like trying to sort of map an agenda or a plan. And I think a huge thing that I find healthy is changing my aperture, changing my angle of looking at it all.
Yeah.
So acting and getting inside of somebody else's writing and being humbled to it, and not playing God over top and changing people's, wants and actions. I learned about writing, and, in terms of Maestro specifically, like I learned about directing, I learned about listening, because I'm watching these people just like really earn their place in our society as like fucking great artists and technicians. Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan, just like running a super wordy scene 5 times in a row, finding new things, never dropping a beat, like a micro beat, finding new things, playing like the high wire act, all these hundreds of extras in the background.
Wow.
Like, I was like, oh, you guys are fucking serious. And they're nerds. They're the same kind of nerds. They're like, okay, what if you do? Okay, and then you, and then, it's just like, okay, so the thing, is about the luck of how you get connected to the people who, you want to be connected to, and wanting to be connected to them, I think, is part of it.
Yeah.
Wanting to go to Broadway certainly was part of the reason that I ended up there. And then I learned all the things, and my like imperfections collided with the zeitgeist and the moment and the sausage getting made and all that, which created like a lack of success, but it was ultimately worth it. 15 years later, really happy it happened. Because I think it contributed to me being in this room with Bradley Cooper, watching him provide a masterclass on like staying in the moment while looking down at an iPad of the shot, because he's directing the movie and playing the piano along with a track that he's not playing to. And like,
that's fucking crazy.
It was crazy. And like, there's a night, so I sang 2 songs in the movie, one got cut, but I sang Carried Away with Mallory Portnoy, who plays
Carried Away.
Yeah, so great, who plays Betty Comden, and she's amazing. And so it's like we're like get there at 8:00 and we're like hanging out with all these celebrities like as if we're equals, whatever. And it's cool, it's fine. And it's just getting later and later and later in this like suburban house party where Carey Mulligan and Bradley Lenny and Felicia meet for the first time. And they meet while we're singing Carried Away. And like, that's the moment.
Oh, wow.
And so, and it's in black and white, and we're like in tuxes and dresses and smoking cigarettes. And like, suddenly it's like 1 a.m. and we haven't done the song. And my voice is getting like raspy, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And we start doing it, and I like go up on a lyric, and Mallory goes, that's not the right lyric. I'm like, I know. Love you, Mal. And then they called dinner, and it was 3 a.m. They called dinner, and the day is done at 4:30. They have to be out. So dinner's an hour. So at 4 a.m., they're going to call us back.
You got 30 minutes
to do this correct one time, maybe.
Wow.
And we did it twice, and I dropped my cigarette, and I just like went down and grabbed it and came right back into the frame and didn't stop. And like learned that from watching Bradley and Carey improvise, because they were improvising. Like they were like throwing shit at each other, like keeping each other awake. And he dug it. And that's not even the cut it's the like more solid cut that we did right after that we did up to 4:29 a.m.
Wow.
But like singing to Carey Mulligan while Bradley Cooper is playing the piano and like Sarah Silverman is like waiting for us to finish so she can come in and say her line, and like just feeling the pressure and the opportunity of that, and just being like, you don't want to be the version of yourself right now that fucks this up.
It makes you better.
It makes you better.
It makes you better.
You rise to the tide.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just like it was the puzzle game. It was the game full. It was 400 people collaborating on that 1 second thing.
That's fascinating. There's so much I want to. I definitely want to hit these questions here about, because I think it's, and I just want to be cautious of time.
I know, because we could. Yeah,
I was already going on forever. I know. Yeah. It's like I want to go on a tangent about that because it's great. So you've transitioned to screenwriting. You've been screenwriting probably for how long have you been like writing screenplays? What did you say?
2016.
Yeah, so relatively, relatively new, I guess.
Almost 10 years.
What was surprising to you about transitioning to this space? Because it's a very different space than the musical theater world. I would imagine so.
It is, but it's musical theater could learn a few things. They could learn from each other.
Yeah.
They're complementary skills in a lot of ways, because the structure game in film is so much more articulate.
Yes.
And in theater, it's a lot of like, we'll figure it out. We'll feel it out.
Right.
And then you're like, wait, why does this beat not land?
Right.
And it's because it's structurally in the wrong place, or like it's not being set up right. You're not getting that information that you think you're putting in the dialogue, but the dialogue is only 10% of it. It's
exactly.
subterranean. And I didn't know any of that. When I wrote Glory Days, I didn't know any of that. I was learning it during A Little More Alive because my friend Max Patolnik who was on soon. He got a job working for David Manson, who is a showrunner who runs Ozark and ran Ozark and Bloodline. Super smart story guy. And so Max is getting story brain all the time.
Yeah.
He's giving me coverage on my scripts and being like, this is inefficient and confusing and bad. And like, you have to fix this.
Amazing.
So I like really took myself to grad school. Like, I loved movies before theater, and that my dad is a huge movie buff, and I just like had already known that like I got into USC for acting, the BA acting program when I was in high school, and didn't go because it was too far away. And I got into Michigan for musical theater and was like, this is where my best friend is, and this is like a nurturing, sweet small town thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about going to LA, but like that was almost a version of my life. And so coming back around to movies was like a real conscious choice.
Yeah.
Of like this, I'm starting to think about A Little More Alive as a movie musical, and we sold a version of it in 2015 that isn't the version we're doing now, but got me involved with that side of my agents. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And like over those really, so 2015 to 2019, I wrote badly for Max and other people and sold nothing except for A Little More Alive. Then the pandemic hit, and I did falsettos on the road in 2019, and we were in LA. We played the Amundsen, and I started taking meetings a little more successfully as a screenwriter, and like learning the language of those meetings, right? And like what they want you to say, and just like not giving away how little I knew.
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of like playing it cool and trying to learn how to lean back. I'm not a lean back. I'm a try hard. So
sure.
Just something that I want to lift up here too, learning from doing, right?
Yeah,
just meaning,
failing.
Exactly.
Right.
I always say, thinking kills ideas. Mainly because we can think something into the fucking ground. If we put ourselves in the line of fire and fail, it's the only way we're going to actually be able to go, oh, okay, that was painful, but you know what? I'm elevated to where I need to be for the next time.
Man. I mean, so Kyle and I pitched that Cuban Missile Crisis musical as a TV series with the producers of La La Land. So it was Automatic Entertainment and Get Lifted, which is John Legend's company.
Right.
And so we did like 10 pitches at Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, and I ended up doing a lot of them by myself, and I played like 10 songs in the pitch.
Wow.
People were like, this is the best pitch I've ever heard. but that's a really expensive musical limited series that has no second season, so no.
Wow.
And I really thought we were going to sell it. And it became clear how naive I was about that for all the reasons that I just said, that I didn't even think about, how, and we didn't have a star attached.
Yeah.
Like there were so many things I didn't understand about that process. But I got to be in those rooms, and like I sat in the waiting room with Scooter Braun. He was going to pitch a show, and I was too, and he was just as nervous as I was at Apple, and like it was like, okay. So these people have been over here doing all this while I've been over there doing all that. But it's the same thing, and we're all scared, and there is an expertise and a language to be learned, a dialect to be learned, and a operating system, but it's adjacent. And the way that screenwriting has made my musicals clearer, it's like an action movie is a musical, but the songs are action scenes.
That's a great way. Yeah, that's actually spot on.
Right?
Yeah,
and like my wife writes
right.
action movies, and she's constantly writing, she's scoring the thing so it tells the story and pushes the character forward. It's the same fucking thing.
I've never heard. That's fantastic. You're spot on. I think that's spot on. I think about Face Off is where my mind
Face
goes.
Off, baby. Oh my God, so much story to dance.
Yeah, it really is.
I want to stay on pitching for 2 seconds.
Yeah, no, please.
Because will you just talk a little bit top level about what you have learned about pitching and packaging, per your point about star attached or not, just what your experience has been, and what any advice you would give to people who are in a similar or are looking to be in a similar position.
Totally. I mean, pitching is really fun. In some ways, it's actually more fun than, it's certainly more fun than auditioning as an actor, because you're in the room longer. So you're in the room for 20 minutes. And you wrote what you're going to say. So you are playing and you're chatting and you're like, I had this thought, but you wrote the thought down, and you're really feeling out social. It's much more of a social thing than like the kind of feeling of being on the block as an actor. Yeah. Not that some auditions can be so gratifying, but it's often 5 seconds long. We all know it. So that part, but then there's just also, this feeling of, how do you get somebody excited about something? What is that mechanism? And you can tell when someone's eyes light up and when they don't. And when you say a pitch enough times and feel like nobody's eyes light up, it's like, okay, well, that might not be the strongest pitch. It might not even be about the story being subpar. It's that the way that you're imparting it is not clear enough yet. Right. And it's to repeat it and to fail and to key into the fact that this is about how fulfilling it is to tell a story well for all of us, that we'll never run out of that interest, and we'll never run out of ways to do it, because it's really like, if you create that kind of math problem of, here is an inevitable truth that we know about life, but we're going to set up this equation where the person at the beginning doesn't know that truth, needs that truth, doesn't even want that truth, but needs it, goes out and tries to find something else and finds the thing that they really need at the end. Yeah. And that feeling, unlocking that kind of magic box of like, oh, it wasn't about all that, but it was. There was a there, there's a jewel in there that you have to know, you have to watch the thing and decipher it in order to get.
It's over. We're out.
Fuck this.
Cut it out from the top.
But that will bring out something.
It'll bring out something. Yeah. And I think that, combined with, mining your social skills for like reading people and understanding what people, what makes people feel stuff, the more that you practice that, the more it becomes an adjacent skill. And, in terms of the packaging part, like, it's like, who do you know and who can you get to? And like having, it's like, and it becomes like 10 people can get the thing made, no matter how big or small it is, because there's not that many people who are doing exactly the thing that you're doing when you really start thinking about it. And, for that project, for Fallout, the Cuban Missile Crisis thing, we like had James Marsden interested at one point, but he wasn't like valuable enough, and now he would be, but he wasn't then. And then we had Zac Efron for a minute, and like he would have been totally wrong for it. But
and
he
are
was helpful.
agents? Sorry to just get like a little myopic. Are agents helping with this, or how is this? Are you utilizing your own connections? Or
it depends on the thing. In those two instances, those were the production company's ideas and connections. But sometimes it's the agent's connections. Certainly, getting pitched a lot of directors who are from my agency or designers, and trying to like mitigate the agent's agenda to like get somebody on your thing versus who's right for it, which is a gut thing that I struggle with, and I think is really challenging. It's dating to get married, right? You're like, okay, so and there's very quickly one meeting, and then you're like off to the races or development hell. And we developed Space Dogs with a different director who bailed right before we started rehearsals, and that was a crazy experience. And it didn't devalue the time with them, but it is a challenging truth to know that is always possible. And like turnover rate in executives in Hollywood is almost yearly now, and they're so scared to buy things.
They're all on the chopping block too.
Totally. We developed my wife and I developed a movie for Universal that we sold during that time in LA. That was the Darn was doing falsettos, and we were like, "This is going to get made. This is amazing." And we had a cool director. And during the time that we were developing it, the cool director made a bad movie that came out and flopped, and suddenly he was less interesting to everybody. And the stars that we wanted to get for it, which were George Clooney and Julia Roberts, picked another version of the movie that we were writing, because the studio had like a bunch of writers, we didn't know this, all making kind of a version of the divorce movie, the divorce comedy. And they picked Ticket to Paradise, and we went away.
I mean, what's so fascinating about all of this, right, is like, that's why you have to be generative, is because if you're putting your eggs in, I mean, in one basket, I mean, it's like you're waiting for so fucking, and you don't know what's happening. You don't know that, they have other writing teams writing the same fucking, or it was a version of. You don't know.
That hurt. That day was like, what?
Of course
they
that's
are.
why you need to like be generative, and that's why art does need to be first, and creation needs to be first. Yeah. And of course, you can be as strategic as possible with it, and advocate for it the best you can.
Yeah.
But there's so much that is outside of your control. I think far less than most actors think there is, but there is so much that is outside of your control. And so that's why you just need to generate and fail and try and get it out there and advocate for it the best possible way you can,
and learn from that shit.
Exactly.
Use that as value. Don't let that go as value. It's not all for naught, despite how I always feel. I always feel like I failed and it's over. And then 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I'm still alive. That happened. Those people feel like they failed too, and now they're back being like, what else do you want to do? And I didn't expect them to come back, or like that idea made me think of something else, or taught me how to fix a narrative problem in something else. I've written 15 movies. None of them have gotten made, but I wrote them and I learned from them. Now I'm 15 movies deep.
The journey is the destination.
And
come on.
Here's what I think a lot of artists struggle with. That inner sense of self and confidence to keep going, because even when it sucks in the moment, you and others have the ability to go, okay, I wake up tomorrow and I put another.
I mean, I'm a mule. I mean, I'm just like I'm like fucking. What else am I gonna do? What else are most of us gonna do? Like I think love is, the addiction is like it's profound. And because the pain does go away, the pain is going to go away. So I think the question is like, can you stand the spike of the pain? And like, I really get if you can't. And I've certainly had many moments where I'm like, I can't take this.
Right.
And I mean, very honestly and truthfully, I had one late this summer where I was like, I just had a kid, and like, this isn't stable. And I lost 2 big jobs.
Yeah.
And I was like, those are telling me to leave. And you can hear it however you're...
Exactly.
My wife always talks about the wack-ness, like seeing it through the whack lens. And she's like, you're just not seeing what I'm seeing, which is everything's fine. And I can see it for her, right?
Exactly.
I can see it for you guys. You can't see it for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk... I want to pivot to Faye and Anna briefly. Faye's Nick's daughter.
You know, in like a bio, it's our greatest production.
Exactly.
That's good.
But I do have one last question about
Yeah,
this that we have
please.
that I do think is worth asking, especially from the talking about being generative, having this true multi-hyphenate stance in the industry. What about directing? You know, are you? I know you have, but are you looking to step more into that as you continue to create?
I think specifically film too. I'm curious about,
Totally. And I think a huge part of it is aging. That I just like I feel more able to like confidently lead a group of people in a way that, you know, when I was younger, I was like, I just felt like the kid. Talking to people who are older than me and like telling them what I think the idea is, which never felt quite natural. There's not to say that you can't, and like Michael, your boyfriend, is an example of somebody who can like lead with grace, you know, as a young person. But yes, the answer is like, I just think it's all the same game and it's just different hats. And I'm going to try to direct this movie musical version of A Little More Alive.
That's sick.
Which would be really wonderful. Thanks.
That's sick.
Thank you for reading that.
That's amazing. Because you originally were looking for somebody else, I think.
We went down the road. We had a guy, and then that thing went through.
Oh, that's fucking dope.
Yeah, and I might co-direct it with this guy, Jeffrey Simon, who I am producing it with, and that might be really a nice way to start with a feature, because I'm a little bit like Jesus, and I'm a parent, so like having the whole thing feels daunting. But you know, the answer is like, I love like hanging out with people and making shit, and so do you guys, and whatever lens that's through is sort of like being honest with yourself about what way you're looking at it. And I'm writing something that like I had kind of been directing for the last couple of readings, and now we're going to get a director, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, I haven't been fully focused on the writing because I've been handling the like putting together of it. And I look forward to not on that one. But then, you know, Dan Lipton, do you know Dan Lipton? He's Kelly O'Hara's music director. They just did this cool thing at Carnegie Hall with Sutton Foster, like big 90s.
Oh, yeah, I saw them on the edge of the stage doing Frank Delilah posted it on
Yes, love
my
Frank.
gay ass was like, double tap.
Double tap.
My gay ass.
I love it. Beep, boop, boop. But he wrote a musical and he asked me to direct that. So like I'm gonna try help him with that. And that was really an honor because, you know, it's just
when you
is
talk
an honor.
about this when you talk about writing screenplays and musicals and understanding that structurally, you know, I could just you'll be fabulous. I mean, you can see it. You'll understand how to. And Space Dogs, I understand that there was an outside eye, but you and Van created that magic. I mean, it was true theatrical magic.
Thank you.
And I mean, it's theater at its best. It's the first thing I said after I saw it, because there's just a lot of great shit.
You just want to see people do stuff in a room.
This is something that came up too in a thing we were, and we should probably start to, because you don't want to take up too much. But I know we have like 100 more questions.
I know,
but I want to say
one
one
thing.
This could be on the Upper West Side at 12:30, but I'm not.
No,
it's
good. We talked a lot about this. Even
I think we hit a lot. But I want to say one thing that's coming up for me about what you're talking about, which is the crazy thing about this moment with social media, with entertainment becoming more democratic, these institutions falling, is that I think specialization is going away. This came up in our we met
you
with
guys
the
were talking
casting
about
director
this.
last night. We were talking about this, but it's like actor and casting, and it's like I think we're all starting to become creators. And the beauty of that is that, you know, we can start to let go of sort of these like, these boxes we're supposed to fall. It's not, but when you're talking to Bernie Telsey, it's not as actor, casting director, it's just two creators, two artists.
Totally.
Yes.
And so what's fascinating about this is that when we kind of break out of this institutional fucking like prison mindset we have about this fake structure, you know, and we start to just relate to each other as creators.
How can
as
we
artists.
make good shit?
Yes.
You know, it opens up potential possibility, unorthodox strategies, bigger scope of what we're trying to create.
Oh my God,
when we break out of this shit, you know, and blah.
100. I mean, it's just so fun. And I would say, like, you know, the thing that felt so far away when I first got to New York was like, how am I going to meet the people that I really respect.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, there's not actually that many of us doing it. There are a lot,
Right.
but we know where a lot of them are every night. And like going to like Norbert Leo Butz's 54 Below show and being like, I think you're awesome. And him being like, oh yeah, you were in that thing with, and being like, yeah. And then we wrote a musical and he was doing a show in the middle of the pandemic. He was doing a TV show in Vancouver, hanging out in quarantine all the time. He was like, yeah, I'll sing your album from my apartment. And we made an album, and like now he's like part of my life. That's a guy that I never thought I would meet, you know. And I didn't like win the lottery in order to meet him. Like I wasn't in a Broadway show with him, you know. It wasn't that.
No,
I went to his show.
You went to his show.
I went to his
and you generated. You were additive.
Well, one of the things, you know, and this is where I talk about you the most in relation to the work. Truly, I say your name and I say, you know what I've learned the most from Nick Blaemire about is giving. And here's why it relates to what you're talking about. You show up, you're there for people, you express interest, you provide opportunity, you make connections. What you're talking about in terms of...
Well, why not? Like, I actually hate the fact that people don't. It's really repellent to me that people be like, I'm holding my art close. And honestly, you know what? We had this conversation last night. I mentioned Danny Jenkins was over, meeting my daughter, hanging out with my wife. We had some Italian food. They were talking about how they're not sharers. They get really
scarcity mindset is what I've
it's gonna be tainted if I show it to you too early. And look, I think my wife's one of my favorite writers I've ever read. So when she shows me the final product, I don't really know what came before because she doesn't want to invite me into that part of the process. Whereas I'm like, hey, I wrote a song, you want to hear it? And she's
exactly.
Like, not right now, actually.
Yeah, but it's good.
It's good, and there's 12 more where that came from today.
Yeah,
you know, like
exactly.
I'm a puppy, and she's you know, like she inculcates, she keeps it close.
Inculcates?
I think that's the right word.
That's smart, bro.
It might not be.
To quote DJ Khaled, you smart. You very smart.
We'll see. Let's check that.
You loyal.
Okay, well, let's end on Anna and Faye, because here's why. Because I want to end because first of all, we keep bringing up Anna. Anna Noguera is another prolific, amazing
Should have her
artist.
on the show sometime.
You should.
Great performer.
You have to pronounce her name Noguera, otherwise she's gonna be mad.
Noguera?
Yeah.
So I can't say Noguera?
No.
Okay,
That's
Noguera.
wrong. But I called you Jonathan Joshua. So
Yes.
Anna Noguera. Okay, I'm so sorry. I've been saying that for years.
Well,
That's
now,
bad.
Now she's gonna know.
That's really
Yeah.
bad. But Anna Noguera, and we met when she was in the workshop of Soon.
She was so amazing in that workshop.
She really was.
She was like, I'm not doing this show. This is too much.
It is a lot for that part.
It was a lot. And Jess Fontana was amazing. And Anna was so happy to sit and watch her do it.
Yeah. That was, but
Huge
Anna,
part.
also a performer and a writer, as we're saying, and the two of you are doing amazing things, including just having this beautiful girl, Faye. And the reason why I want
Good name, too.
to
That's a good name.
end here with Faye specifically and Anna is because, you know, a lot of our work is about how we do this sustainably for the rest of our lives. And you were talking just about how the end of summer was a period of like, you just lost 2 big jobs. You have this, you know, the best creation of all, my words.
Yes, correct.
You're like, I don't prescribe
I like
to
her,
that.
yeah.
Exactly.
You're like,
no, but
That's the
can
best
you
things that ever
can
happened.
you talk about the decision to have a child in this industry, what you've learned from it so far, and you know how it speaks to your future as a person, as an artist?
Totally. I love that question, and I think that's one of the things that you guys are doing so well is placing these lofty dreams in a practical context and trying to understand how to literally do your dreams and not need them to be Tom Cruise's dreams in order for them to be valid at all. There's so many different permutations, and I'm constantly seeing it. I mean, I'm going to go back to Daniel Jenkins, who is like, was in a Robert Altman movie when he was 18 because of Big River. And the Robert Altman movie got him a pilot that didn't go but paid for his apartment. And he never got a TV show, never had that like spike that his best friend Allison Janney had, you know.
Right.
But he had an apartment in New York City, a 2-bedroom on the Upper West Side that he could raise 2 kids in, and suddenly this like weird unstable business had given him this gift because he had just kind of kept surfing.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. And I mean, I've known I wanted to be a dad since I was like 3. You know, I think there is something about like the doll and the action figure where I'm watching my own child now be like my doll, and she's got a Space Dogs doll that she like loves. And it's really in us, you know. There's just, obviously if you don't want to have kids, I understand, but if you do and you're worried about balancing it against the instability of this business, I think you have to trust that you got this far. And that, you know, it does test you, and did. And the first 4 months she wasn't sleeping at all, and I thought I had to go get a 9-to-5 job to like provide, and that was scary. But that fear subsided, and like we've been able to make ends meet, and we continue to, you know, be creative about how to do that.
Yeah.
But her presence in my life, and I, you know, knew this before from other parent friends who were like, it's the best thing that's ever happened to you, not just as a person, but as a creative person, because you're inventing and watching a person discover in such real time that it's almost like you're getting a cheat code to the Matrix or something. Like you're seeing how thoughts connect, you know, and being like, this is a thing that just happened. I was showing her like fake food, you know, the other day, like these blocks. She had a bowl as Anna was making dinner, and we were playing, and she was like, but that's not real, you know. And then after like 2 seconds was like, but now it's a tomato, you know. She made that connection. And then we were home the other day, and she was like, wanted to get into the laundry, and our gym clothes were in there, and they were sweaty and gross. And I was like, no, like, don't put your hand in the hamper. And she started doing imaginary clothes. And then I did it with her, and I handed her imaginary clothes. She put them in there. And it's just like creative steroids. Like it's heroin. It's like, I just feel so fertile, because I'm going to be pregnant soon.
Yeah.
I can't wait to say that word.
You're turning me on right now.
Yeah, God. I feel so
getting hot.
It's so moist. But it is a rocket ship for ideas. And so I think it's a rocket ship for anxiety too, and a rocket ship for all of it. Rocket ship for depression. No question, it's an unwieldy thing. But I just think, as an aging person who, I wouldn't have had a kid when I was 28, and we got together around then. So I'm glad I waited. That was something, because there is a lot of going out till 2 a.m. that I'm glad I was a part of for my career, as much as also for my like dreams of living in New York. And I think people who, you know, have to shut themselves out of that soon, they can resent that. So I still resent it now. You know, I go out like 2 nights a week. But it's okay. And like, I love what she has done to my understanding of life and of making stuff, and how meaningful it is, because a great children's book is opening. I mean, a brand new book upon the shelf, a brand new way to see yourself, is one of the lines in the book. And it just like wrecks me to read. Because I'm like, that's good fucking writing. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for writing that down and just throwing it out into the void, and never meeting me, and never being a number one on the fucking list, you know. But they wrote a book that my daughter understands the world through, and I understand the world through all the art that I've seen and loved, and I'm directed by it. And when my favorite filmmakers make a new movie, or playwrights make a new play, or favorite actors go on stage and do something, and I'm like, I'm coming to that, and like, I'm sad I missed Addams Family. It's not because I'm being nice, and it's not because it's just a love fest. It's because I know there's something over there for me to learn, and my worldview is confirmed by there being good art in the world that is making other people feel excited. And like, I saw Stereophonic twice at Playwrights, because I was like,
so good.
I can't believe this is happening. Like, I can't believe I'm watching what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it is as meaningful as we want it to be.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about what you're talking about too, with everything too, is that the unwieldiness. Look, we always said we strive to make ends meet. We strive to create structure.
Yeah.
But when we're doing big shit and making art and trying to make a living from it, it's the same thing as it's always feeling like we're behind. It's like life is going to be. There's pressure to that life. There is pressure.
There is no vacuumless version.
Exactly. And how do we learn to live with it and find the beauty in it? And that's where the beauty is. It comes from that the high stakes game of poker we're playing.
Totally. And those complications.
Yes.
There is no vacuum version.
Yes.
We live in a variable,
right,
like constant. The only constant is the variable.
Exactly.
You wake up in the morning and you're like, everything is going great. I like look forward to finding out which way I get knocked off this fucking.
Exactly.
And if I get back on.
Yeah. And getting back on is maybe going to take 2 days of sitting around.
And that's it too. Is like, you know, with when it comes to structure and everything, it's like Sisyphus with the fucking rock, like you said. It doesn't mean you go, okay, you know, you have to fucking, you know, provide, you have to fucking live, you have to fucking, you don't, like you work within the chaos.
Yes.
And with the intention and your values. And that's how we get by, I think.
And I think there is some weird Moses shit where like you intend and you value and you work hard and you keep trying and you get up after the bad night that didn't go well and keep pushing forward. And weirdly, it might not be like, but like, it's just, you do inch forward and you look back and you're like, remember where you used to be back there wanting to be where you are now.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's why we call this creative risk too. Because
a risk.
It's a risk, you know, just like any entrepreneurial effort is, and our efforts are pushing the rock up the mountain. I would argue is just arguably a bit more difficult than most other businesses. I'm not saying it's not. Plenty of businesses aren't hard, but ours is uniquely challenging.
It is uniquely, and it's maddening. And I have been really lucky, and I feel constantly like unhelpful as to how I got here, because I don't think any path is really repeatable, and that's the other real challenge is like, we can all talk about the theories, but you have to be able to look at the givens of your life and your nature, nurture, and where you're at, and figure out how to get where you want to go, and then accept all of the things that happen in between.
That's right.
As informative in a way that they're only going to be informative to you,
exactly.
not to somebody else. It's hard.
Accept them as informative too. Take the take the failings as opportunities. You know, and that's great. I want. Is there anything you want to plug? Like, what is? You guys are doing the concert at Keene, right? Glory Days.
Yeah, Glory Days at Symphony Space.
Did you see him in Tick Tick Boom when he did it at Keene?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God, that was fucking amazing. Well, Keene you were fucking amazing. That Keene is always one of my
favorite.
favorite.
Keene.
Oh, they are fucking
Johnny
incredible.
Silverstein's going to direct Glory Days.
That's sick.
The only guy I've trusted in 15 years to really be able to do it, and it's going to be so fun. So that's February 12th, 2024, and then like hopefully a lot of other shit coming your way soon.
Fuck yeah, dude.
You can follow Nick at Blaemire, Blaemire.
At Blarmar, son of Blarmar.
Meyerrie.
Son of Blarmar.
We also will share some additional clips in the show notes too, just because there's so much good shit. We didn't even talk about nerds. I mean, there's so much. Literally, this feels like the tip of the iceberg, but in exactly what I wanted to share, because so much of your perspective, Nick, just organically, innately speaks to so much of what we try to sort of package.
We're on the same page. I mean, I learn from you guys, and I admire you guys spending your time actively helping people, you know, articulate their dreams better. And I do think that, you know, it is very strange to me to not be generous. And I don't think that's what my wife and Danny are saying by not wanting to share their work.
Yeah.
It's like sharing your goodwill, you know, and strategy. And if it's more of an open book, maybe we can all, you know, have a little bit more space to exist and not all need to be in this one tiny, you know, version.
And how unhelpful it is to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, thank you. This is Creative Risk, where we talk about clearly art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between, as exemplified by today. Like and subscribe. Next guest will be Joe Rogan, who's making us. Okay, bye.